over 2 decades in the software development community, Lars is a published author, solution architect, and community leader. Please put your hand up for Lars!
I am Lars. I work for Akana, small startup. We do a whole bunch of other stuff, which isn't in this talk. I am a Microsoft MVP, which means they give me stickers, which is great. And I also run a little YouTube channel, which is my outlet creatively for things that might include home automation, networking, and cars. I did mention that. If you want to hear me absolutely not shut up, ask me about Lego or cars. Or not. All right. Now, if you are on... Oh, no, it's not Twitter anymore, is it? What's it called? It's... Yeah, whatever that thing is. I'm still on there. If you are on Twitter, X, Tweetybird, whatever you want to call it, I will post, or my assistant will magically post a few extra pieces of information there for the talk as I go through it. And if you have any questions, please just put your hand up or shout it out. I don't mind. I would like this to be a conversation. Otherwise, you'll just fall asleep or you will be doom scrolling on Instagram like that guy. That was uncalled for, but funny. Right. So first question, who is a developer? Who writes code? All right, that's almost everybody. Are there any sort of managers here? All right, out. I still write code. Yeah, right, Pete, you can stay. No, and the reason I ask is that you are aware of software testing, right? Unit tests, anyone? Yeah? So who tests all their code? Liars. No, you don't. It's one of those things that's really difficult to actually do. And no one wants to do it because it's boring. We want to write the thing, right? So does anyone do TDD, test-driven development? There's like 3 people. Oh, there's a few. Now, do you do actual TDD, or is that what your boss has told you you're doing? Yeah, there's a big difference. Now, it's tricky because, test-driven development sounds great, but yeah. So I'm here to talk about cloud testing in particular, because that's where we get to a point where developers in particular goes, oh, cloud, well, that's someone else's job, right? We like that bit where we can just offload those sort of things. So I did a bit of research. I found a few books on this. Have anyone ever read a book on testing? No, exactly. Oh, there's 3 people. All right. Was that to fall asleep, or was that? But I found pretty good ones. There's this one, Excuses for Not Writing Unit Tests, which I've used a lot. That works really well. We have Hoping This Works. That's another very, very popular approach to testing. We have Practical Testing. Just click around and see if anything breaks, which is what most people do. Did you do your UI test? Yes, meaning I clicked the buttons, right? Exactly. And of course, we have Commenting Out Failed Tests, an all-time favorite. Now, this might be funny seeing this, but you all know they're true. People are going, ha, 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 oh, God, right? Because we do this. This is what we do. So I want to give you a little bit of a kick up the backside about testing and show you a bunch of tools in the cloud and cloud-ish that actually can help you. And some of them can even be quite fun. We'll get to that. Right. So this is the survey I did of the testing approach for developers. These are generally the approaches we have. It's someone else's job. Yes, of course, I tested it. My machine isn't fast enough. Or what do you mean testing? Right, we have many, many excuses for not doing testing. So let's go and do some actual testing. Or look at how we can do it. So pass. Okay, I should probably preface this with, does anyone here, has anyone never seen Azure in action, or Azure? Microsoft Azure. Okay, good. There's 3 people. All right. Really? Might put her hand up. I'm not sure. I believe that. No, but so I'm an Azure MVP, which means to get those stickers, I got to talk about Azure, right? It also means I live in that ecosystem. So all these examples are going to be on Azure, but they're sort of applicable to other clouds as well. Probably just not Oracle. Anyway, let's talk about app services. Probably the most popular service on Azure. Who uses app services for their development, deployment, whatever? 3 people, really? There's probably lots of you that do and don't realize, I would imagine, if you don't exactly know where it runs, if it's someone else's job to run it. But app services is where you run your website or your API. You can even run something like worker roles, little jobs that are timed. They're very, very, very popular, and if you use them right, that's not this talk, but if you do use them right, they can also be quite inexpensive. If you use them wrong, they're not. But let me show you. So I'm going to flick back and forwards between slides and not slides. So here is an app service. This is one I created earlier. In fact, that CYOCH stands for Choose Your Own Adventure, Choose Your Own Cloud Adventure, which is a talk I did last year at Programmable. But I still have this hanging around because it's kind of it's the user app that you would use to vote for the path in the talk. So I'm not going to go through all this, but app service has something called deployment slots in here, which is there's quite a few use cases for deployment slots that most people aren't aware of. So who has used deployment slots ever? There's a few people, right? So the cool thing about these, is this big enough, by the way? Can you see this all right? Yeah? Otherwise, just yell out, right? Bit bigger? You want bigger? Cool, no problem. That better? Awesome. The idea with deployment slots is that you have an app service, so your website. You create a copy of it, complete copy, that becomes a deployment slot. Right? So it doesn't cost you anything extra because it runs on the same app service plan. And it's an exact copy of app service. It has its own URL you can access directly, but it allows you to test things. So, for example, I could go in here on this one, and I could say add a slot. And I would give it a name, so we can call this Programmable. Programmable? Oh, that's terrible. Programmable. And you can see down here, it gets the URL CYOCA dash, as in they're linked. Right? You know you can't get rid of that bit because it's a deployment slot. It's on a new site. And then you can clone settings from the other instance or the other slot if you want to. You might have different settings for each. One is testing, one is production, one is staging, one is production, or whatever it is that you might want to set up. Then I add that, and then it takes 30 seconds or something, not even probably. And then I have an exact copy of that deployment slot. Yay, that's neat. All right, so that's step one. We now have deployment slots. Well, shortly. Any questions? Because there's always going to be someone that has the first question, and then everybody is okay asking questions. And there's probably a microphone or something. Is there, Maya? Yeah? Just in case. No? All right. I'll get your questions. Don't worry. Otherwise, I'll get Dylan to do it. He's sitting there just... And then it failed. All right. That's great. Who doesn't like live demos? You want to try again? Should we try one more time? And we're just going to call this staging. And I'm not going to clone in the settings this time, and it might actually be quicker. Right, so when you have these deployment slots, you can set it up in your pipeline. You can actually push to a specific slot. And then the cool thing is, which is hopefully what I was going to show you, is that you can swap these slots instantly. So it's just basically a DNS swap, right? So you have no downtime whatsoever. If someone is right middle of a session, you might lose them. But other than that, no one would ever know. And then if this would finish, that would be great. So this is where you ask questions because it failed again. We're doing well. All right. I don't think we're going to do this. Anyway, I'm just going to pretend there's another one, right? So now I can show you this. Does anyone know what this is? This is Spotlight, Logitech Spotlight pointer. And it's called Spotlight because you can do stuff like this. Isn't that great? I know. That's my talk. Thanks for coming. No, so down here, there's a traffic number, right? So pretend there were two lines. If this bloody thing would work, we would have two lines. One would be a staging, one would be production. Or you could say, well, I want to actually test various scenarios. You might have changed one bit of your website. And they're both production, or they're both staging, whatever, but you can do A/B testing. So that traffic number there, you can change to say 3070, or 5050, or 595. And some of the traffic will be guided to the other instance. And of course, you've got to set up your logging or however you want to monitor that and find out what the results are. But it's a super simple way of doing really, well, quite rudimentary A/B testing, right? Most people never realize that. The only thing is, don't forget to turn off these traffic numbers if you suddenly have other scenarios. I did this in one talk with my live website, so larsklint.com, and I said, hey, and you can change it to 3070 or something. Saved it, went over my day, and like a month later, someone goes, your website doesn't work. I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't work? And I went to it, yeah, it's fine. Got someone else to test it, yeah, it's fine. And then the same person went, no, it doesn't work. I'm like, what? I forgot that 30% of the traffic went to a non-existing website, right? So you can screw up your testing as well. But it's a really good feature, really neat feature. Questions about it? Now's your chance. This is going to be what, first one. And then you all go, oh, it wasn't so bad. He asked the questions or she asked the questions. All right, so let me just continue. So that's app services. There's a really easy way of testing that. There we go. And I do have a video here just in case it blew up, which it did, so you can see it. Down here, come on. See if we can do that. No. So you're not going to see the video either. It's going well. Oh, there we go. Look at it. It's running, but I can't actually fast forward in the video, I think. Click there, and then nothing happens. Never mind. Okay. So, there's this beautiful thing in cloud, which is, have you ever heard the expression you should treat VMs like cattle, not pets? It's a bit not politically correct to say it now, but the idea is that you don't have to care as much about certain resources in the cloud because you can just regenerate them, right? So you don't need a personal relationship with your resources because you just have a template, however you Terraform, ARM template, whatever, that recreates them and you have the same resource again. There's a really cool service, I guess, platform even, on Azure called Dev Test Labs. And this is, as it says here, quickly provision of environments so you can set up, as the name indicates, it's for development, right? It's not a production environment. And I'll show you just in a second how that works. But you can set up quotas and policies. It allows your developers, which is all of us except Pete, he's a manager, to create your own resources. So you say, oh, I need this VM for whatever. You can spin it up within the policies of your company or your subscription and your tenant. You can automate shutdowns so you save costs, and it runs both Windows and Linux. So let's have a look at that. You're very quiet. Are you asleep? No. There was one no. The rest is. All right. So here is one I created earlier. So this is a Dev Test Lab resource. Again, it looks like any other resource on Azure, almost. This has a couple of things on here. So this is, you would give your developers that have their account on Azure access to this. That's the idea. So we have here, I've created one VM, which is running down here. I wasn't going to create a million of them. And it's based on SUSE Enterprise Linux for something, something, something. Now we can add resources like this. It just loads it because there is a lot. And go. Wow. Or maybe not. Oh, there we go. Something worked on Azure. Yay. So you can see you can create an Oracle database, a Red Hat, Enterprise Linux, SUSE Linux, Ubuntu, Visual Studio machines, Flatcar containers. Does anyone know what that is? No one? All right, I don't either. Ubuntu servers and blah, blah, blah. And there's a lot. Look at the scroll bar, right? There's a million of these. All sorts of resources. Now, your policies for your company might mean you can't do all of them, and you can't do massive ones or whatever they have set up, but you can create your own resources when you need them. That's the whole idea. So when you create the resource, I'm not going to create one now because I just did one before. You can go into all resources, so there's one, right? And then over here you can say, well, actually, I want to, oh, hang on, sorry. Claimable, sorry, that's the one I meant to show you. Oh, we don't have any virtual machines claimable. Not sure what that is. But that one, you would claim that, right? So you would take that machine, you would claim it, meaning it goes onto your subscription or your account, your Azure account, and then that would be yours until you're done. And then you can release it back and say, yeah, I'm done. And then someone else can claim it. So you share the resources. And it's a really interesting way of managing a test environment in the cloud, right? Was there a hand up? I was so hoping for that first question. Come on, people. It's like, yes, see? Free kitten for you. Pricing model? Yeah, that's. We could talk about pricing, and then the rest of the people would leave. Yes, you pay for these resources, obviously. You pay less because they're not production, so you're not going to get the same SLAs, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, there's a cost to it. The idea is that it's under policies so that the cost is managed, and developers don't go nuts because we all want the $8,000 a month VM, right? Look, it runs Doom. And then you can also do this with environments, so full environments like Kubernetes. You can have data disks and secrets, all these different, and they keep adding more, not keep, but they do add occasionally, they meaning Microsoft, new resource types that you can add. And it's just, it allows someone in IT to have some trust in developers using resources. Because I don't know if you ever noticed that. There's a bit of a, you need a VM? Why? Right, in this case, we could just create them. That's the whole idea, to remove that. And also not have, take away an excuse from you saying, oh, I don't have a VM to test it on. Of course you do. Or a disk, or whatever it is you might need. See, now he's asked the first question, so everybody else can ask questions. It's interesting, though, because when you sit in these talks as an attendee and you just listen to someone, you actually don't take it in as well as if you ask the question. As soon as you have to think about asking something that relates to what people are presenting, it makes you understand it better. Bit of learning technology for you there. It also means I just want you to ask questions. Right. Here's a cat. There we go. But it's just a YAML file, or whatever you use, JSON files, right? How do you test it? It's just text. It's just declarative. I don't know how to test it. It just gives me the thing I asked for. So, yeah, okay, fair enough. But there are ways, so this maybe it might soon become inside of GitHub, I don't know, but everything on Azure, it's on Azure DevOps seems to be going into GitHub. Has anyone used Azure DevOps now? A couple of people, 3, 4, yeah. Are you seeing anything that's sort of moving, like you've been told, oh, you should do GitHub or you should use GitHub? Is that true? Because I just see it from my side, that's why I'm asking whether you're seeing the same thing. Say again? Yeah, Azure DevOps, so the pipelines, you mean? Going into GitHub Actions, yeah, for sure. And that seems like the first natural step. But there are other things in Azure DevOps, aside from pipelines. One of them is Azure Test Plans. And this is, again, as a developer, we'd be like, meh, test plans, don't really care. But because it will be in the same tool, it actually influences how your unit test runs and how your pipeline deployment goes and those sort of things. But this is, as a QA person or as a test lead or whatever your title is, this is really cool. Like, it really gives you a lot of oversight and a lot of power in terms of creating these test plans. So I'll just show you really quickly what it sort of looks like. And there we go. So we have, well, actually, yeah, let me just go here first. So this is just, it's not a real project. Wow, that's small. Jeebus. Come on. There we go. There's not a real project. This is just test data, dummy data, but it gives you an idea. So if you haven't seen Azure DevOps before, it's used for boards, it's used for your Kanban, your tasks, etc. You have repos, which is basically where you put your code. You have pipelines, which is like GitHub Actions, if that's your thing, but it's where you do your deployment things and your checks and your tests and all that, all your gates. You have artifacts, which is sort of like NuGet, where you can actually put your own things up because maybe you don't want your packages in a public NuGet, you can put them into artifacts. So it's a whole ecosystem for running, called DevOps. I don't know why it's called Azure DevOps because it runs with everything, not just Azure. Like you can use AWS stuff in here or integrate with all sorts. But the test plans, as here, you can see that this is, there we go, something, right? I don't know exactly what that is, doesn't matter. Verify that a notification is auto-closed after X seconds, and we have over here is a little thing, we can run that for the web application. Now, I don't have the web application, because this is just dummy data, but you get the idea that these things are integrated. So you have these test plans that follows your iterations, it follows your tasks, it follows your deployments, and it just means that you're sort of working much better with the QA people if you are a developer that subscribe to I commented out the test, they are all is green now. Now, if you want to play around with this, because Azure DevOps can be a bit overwhelming, I do actually have a demo generator. The link will be on Twitter, but it's Azure DevOps demo generator.azurewebsites.net. And here you just log into your Azure DevOps and you can deploy a project, one of many, which gives you some idea of how everything works. There's a few templates here, right? Just a little bit of a way of getting going on this. That's pretty cool. It gives you all the dummy data you need. All right, and so that's the test plans here, and there's many, obviously. You can see this is iteration 2, and you might have other iterations. Don't know if they actually have here. Come on. Here's all the test plans. Oh, we just have iteration 2, okay. Because it's dummy data, right? Anyway, questions on that? Come on. There's 2, or is it? No, it's 1 and 1 pointing to them. All right, you want to shout it out, or do you want a microphone? We're going for the mic.
Hello.
Hi.
Question is, can you connect an automated test suite to a test planning?
Can you connect an automated
Test suite.
Test suite?
Yeah.
Yes, but it wouldn't be inside of test plans. It would just be in your pipeline. So that would be like a third-party hook or something you have that triggers it and obviously gives you a result back whether it passed or not. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be in your Azure pipeline. So when you set up the pipeline and you say, I'll build the code, and then you push the code to somewhere else for it to be tested, then that would be a hook there, and I bet you there's already an action for that, or a GitHub action. But yeah, it wouldn't be in this.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, oh, see, now we're going to roll. I told you. Do you want a microphone? Yeah, or do you? Are these front-end tests only? No, they do not have to be. This particular one is designed about front-end. You can see a lot of these if I go to another one. I should be able to request hotel for late checkout. So this might not be a front-end, or it might be both front-end, back-end. Right? So yeah, but good question. Very good question. Another one, yes! Now we're on to the 2-hour talk.
Thank you. Is there a program like this in GCP or AWS that you know of?
Don't know.
Does anybody know?
Is there one, did you hear the question? Like, does it exist in GCP or AWS? As an Azure MVP, no. Just in case Microsoft's listening. No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I would imagine there would be something. Is there any AWS people in here that can contribute? Because that's a good question. We are talking about cloud testing. It just happens I'm doing Azure. No? No one knows. It could be your next talk. Yeah, good question, though. Thank you. All right. We've still got 20 minutes left. Oh, sorry. It was right in the spotlight. Go for it. Jeeps. What
does the chart tabs show? Like
I'm not
chart.
fun. What does the what do?
Chart. Next to execute chart. Like, what do you see with it?
Like, okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do a game. Am I close?
No. What does the chart tabs show? Like, when you click on it, like next to execute. I'm just curious. Like chart.
Oh, chart. I'm sorry.
What do you see with it? Like,
oh, that will show pretty rudimentary fail or not. It also has some run times on how long it took to run the tests. Yeah, but it's because Microsoft like businesses, so they're like, oh, you can probably export it to Excel as well, I'd imagine. But yeah, it's not super useful. Can we actually, I'm not even sure we could run it. Let's just run it. I don't think it'll work. Because I think it's just going to try and build stuff that doesn't exist. Yeah. Microsoft Test Runner. Log into the application. Okay. Oh, so this is just a task list. Yeah, okay. That's not really helpful. Yeah, I passed them all. Oh dear. Yeah, I passed all those too. Yeah. Wait, hang on. I'm having fun here. That's not working, is it? Okay, let's see. And then I'm going to fail that one. My shouted at me. And then that one, and that one. More tests. Cool. There we go. Okay, and I think that'll be it. And we save that. That didn't actually do anything. Come on. Why does it say Windows 10, by the way? Yeah. Okay. I did save it. Can I just close it? I was going to update. Okay. Sorry, there's a question. Has it got support for native apps? As in mobile apps? Yeah? Not really. Because there used to be Xamarin plugins for the pipeline, but this was much more focused around managing the tests rather than running them. So this is more of a, yes, my QA lead has approved my tests or whatever, or not. So as a developer, you would have that feedback from that system. But yeah, the native tests are tricky. I used to be a mobile dev. Actually, I used to be the mobile dev. Windows Phone, anyone? No? Oh. Yeah, good question though. All right, so one more question. Oh, look at this. We're on a roll. I like this.
So are these like UI tests, and what is there like a standard that Azure is recommending? Say, is it a particular tool? Is it
for tools? Is there a standard tool? No, not really.
Okay.
Not that I know of anyway. I'm not a front-end tester person. I've heard of one once called Cucumber.
Okay.
That was used, and I just thought that was funny, but I don't understand exactly how it works. But yeah, there are integrations with this for the runs. I'll see. I might just mess up my demo now. Let's see what happens. Sorry, it's probably in config. See, well, that showed completed now. All right, so I did save it. So that's the name of it. Yeah, okay. Oh, and you get my address if you want. So yeah, there's ways you can configure it, but not as such. You would use the other tool and then record it in here.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Mine gets to run now. There's one over there. You shout it out as well. It's up to you.
Thank you. My question is from what I can see, it's just you have like a list of testing scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine as a developer, we still need to specify the instructions step by step.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Again,
So what you need to do, say you get the user login first, and what you expect to see, and so what makes this product different from other testing frameworks?
That's a good question. Why would you use this, is what you're saying, right? Why do I care? The main reason is that it is within Azure DevOps. I bet you this is going to be part of the GitHub suite as well. So now I'm speculating. Don't take this as face value. But I would say that a lot of this stuff is going to start moving into GitHub. Now, there's a lot of investment in this. There's a lot of big companies using Azure DevOps, so this is not going to happen in a hurry. But as they do, I would imagine some of these tools will improve. And then you might care more when it's part of GitHub. But no, that's a good question. Why should you care? And there's no reason you can't use another test management tool. It's just that this integrates so well with the boards and the repos. You can link all of these things together so that you know which test plan went with what in terms of your commits and your epics and your stories, etc. Right? So that's where the value is that it's on the same platform and they connect. You can actually use this with GitHub as well. We did a test at Arcana because we're doing a Copilot workshop, and does anyone use Copilot? This is not a Copilot talk, but I just love it. Yeah, the rest of you, please give it a go. It makes you happy. That's the main thing I take away from it. Copilot makes you happy because you are going to be the most awesome developer in the world. It's just really good. But we did a test where we put the commit message, because GitHub does automated commit messages with AI, and they're amazing. I don't know if you've seen any of those. but it just gives you really good description of what's happened or what's changed in a commit. And it's valuable. It's not just because it's AI. It's actually really valuable because you read it and you go, oh, that's what happened. Or you change it because it's not quite right, whatever. But those commit messages can also go into Azure DevOps. So there is a connection somehow. It's a bit clunky, granted, but it does work. So back to your question, why should you care? Mainly because this is like inside. If you are in the Microsoft ecosystem in some way, like Azure DevOps, it kind of makes sense. But there are other tools that are probably much better in your scenario. I'm not going to judge which one you should use. Yeah, all right, I'm going to continue now because we only got 15 minutes left. Good questions, though. Thank you. See, we warmed up a bit. That means you can ask questions in the other sessions as well. It's okay. Usually there's a Q&A part. The speaker will let you know when it's okay to ask questions. I like the interaction. Some speakers will be at the end. But yeah, please always ask questions. Again, I had a video just in case it didn't work. Here is the link. There we go. So that's the website where you can generate your own test data if you want to. It gives you all of those pretty graphs as well. That's part of why managers love it. But yeah, okay. Has anyone ever done serverless on purpose? Yeah, a few people. All right, that's good. Because last time I did this, there was not many. So serverless is still a thing. It still exists. There's a lot of it. It's become less what the cool kids do. But this is often like, how do you test serverless? There's no server on serverless, right? But I want to talk specifically about Azure Functions. I used to write what the cool kids are doing. Maybe it's what they were doing. I don't know what are the cool kids doing now? AI, right? It's all Copilot. But Azure Functions are still very much here. They're very efficient. Does anyone use, or Lambda for that matter, does anyone use any kind of functions in the cloud? That's what I thought. Like, they're everywhere, and and there's a good reason. Is that they're super easy. As developers, we don't have to worry about very many things. And with Azure Functions, it is just like testing your other code, right? So that's Visual Studio, because I'm that old. Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio, two different things, if you didn't know. They come from the same family, but they are two different things. I just want to show you, because I have a little project here that Microsoft set up, which is, oh, where did it go? Of course it did. Start up Visual Studio. There we go. We got function testing. It's a solution here. Now, I do apologize for the very small letters or writing in a minute, but I cannot make it any bigger. I can make that bigger. That's okay. So I have a file here just with some tests, and these are function tests, all right? So this is using XUnit, but whatever framework you think is great. And this looks pretty familiar, yes? So is this what you normally comment out? That means yes. People go, oh crap, sprung again. No, it's just standard testing, right? We set up some, in this case, request response, whatever it might be, right? It's just, this is purely a Microsoft example because what the tests is not important. And then I have up here test. I can actually see the test explorer. Now this one I cannot make any bigger. I apologize. For some reason, that is not an option in Visual Studio. But in here are just my tests, which are those. Come on. There we go. And all you have to do is, just test them. And you might think this is like, well, duh, it's pretty rudimentary. Like, why are you showing us that? Just to prove a point. Right? Yeah, it's a function that runs in the cloud, but you can have the entire Azure Functions runtime on your machine and run it and test it. There's no excuse, right? Just like testing any other code. So, does that make sense? Yeah, and I bet you Lambda is the same. I don't actually know, but I'm assuming there is a full runtime you can run locally for Lambda. Yeah, there is. Because why would you not, right? Usually I use the CLI because they have cool ASCII art, but that's a different matter. Yeah, questions on that? Because that was simple. Oh, Peter, yes. He's waiting for the microphone. Yes.
Can you run those tests in a pipeline, in a build pipeline or something like that?
Yes. Yep, of course you can.
And does that testing interface also work in Visual Studio Community? edition?
Yes, I don't actually know. But I just use Visual Studio Code because I like C#. There's another example, Node runs just fine in VS Code. I believe this runs just fine in VS Code if you use the CLI. I don't think, it's just, I like the visual of this because I get green ticks. But good question, yeah. I don't know what the different versions of Visual Studio gives you or don't. Yeah, all right, cool. I'll just close that. We have 10 Minuten. We're just getting to the good bit now. And, okay. But it's someone else's computer, right? I hear this a lot, to be honest. How do I test stuff that doesn't run on my computer? Like, do I test it in production? Well, yeah, you can. I'm not kidding. Who has heard of chaos theory and chaos monkeys? Surely a few, yeah. So you don't need to know it in depth. That's not what I'm asking. Just, you know the concept, possibly. And Azure actually has made this, Chaos Studio, which is hilarious. I'm not kidding, you really can mess with your team. If I was there's a reason I'm not a dev manager, because I would do this all the time. No, there's many reasons why you would use Chaos Studio. Now this is still, I don't remember, it came out of preview reasonably recently. But there are two common scenarios that you need to sort of understand for Chaos Studio to make sense. You have what's called shift left. I still don't know why it's called shift left, but anyway, which is dev test environments, and you have no real customer traffic. So this is when you're developing things and you want to see if something breaks, what happens, etc. And then, can you guess what the other one is? Shift right. Yeah, I still don't know what that is either, why they call it that. But that is your production and your pre-production environment, and you actually use real traffic. So yes, you're testing in production, and they want you to. This is brilliant. Now there's a few use cases for this that I want to just quickly go through so we can have a look at how that actually works. You can reproduce an incident, which is very handy. So if something happened, you had some resources that got broken or lost or switched off, whatever, you can reproduce that incident to the best of your abilities, right? You can sort of mimic what happened. You can prepare for an event. So if you have, seasonal, I always think of cranberries as seasonal. I don't know, because I listened to a podcast about it. But there used to be that Ocean Spray would sell like 90% of their products in 2 weeks around Thanksgiving because of cranberry sauce. Now, that was a while ago. They've sort of diversified. But preparing for something like that, when there's massive influx for something, because we don't know. How do we test it? I tested it. I threw 10,000 requests at it, and it was fine. But you don't quite know, right? Regular disaster recovery drills. This is the ones that you might not know about, but happens. Application benchmarking. So does your application do what it says on the box? Is it actually performing what you thought it would? And planning. You can plan out how to create your architecture based on what is likely to happen. You might have, if we had a Perth region, you might have something in Perth and something on the East Coast, right? But you might spread out your load on wherever it makes sense for you, where your customers are. But you can plan with this tool as well. So let me show you how that works, because it's kind of neat. It's actually really simple. Someone's clapping. I still got 7 minutes, right? 7 minutes, all right. So this is Chaos Studio. Not a lot of menu items, as you can see. This is very, very simple, for good reason. And you start with it here. There are two things you need to do. You need to choose what your targets are, and then you need to set up your experiment. That is it. So it's very, very approachable. Now, I've already set up a target. I genuinely think Azure had an issue because all these failed for me this morning when I was setting it up. But I managed to get one. And come on. The targets are just the resources that I have. So these are all the resources currently in this subscription. There's a few. It doesn't actually show you which one because it is, where'd it go? I think it's that one, maybe. We'll see in a minute. Yeah, it doesn't actually let you enable. But there are two different ways of enabling these resources. So we have all the non-VM things. So that's your storage, for example, or your websites, your app services. If you go up and enable those, you have service direct targets, is what it says. And that means that Azure is directly in charge of that service or that resource, right? So it can target these directly. If you want to use VMs, as it says down here, you have to enable agent-based, as in it installs an agent on the VM so that it can wreak havoc inside the VM. Yay! I'm not going to do that. So let's just go back to experiments. And then when you've decided which of your targets you want to mess with, then you can create an experiment. So you can create one, a new one, or one from a template. The templates are not super useful. There's only 2, really. So we'll just do a new experiment. And in here, you choose your resource group. So I've got one I'll call Programmable. And we'll give it a name. We can call this Chaos Now or something. And then you choose a region, right? And you just give them permissions. So there's 2 different ways. If you're familiar with Azure, this makes sense. System assigned identity or user assigned, as in, is it a user that's doing all this? That might be what you want to do, like for a reason. Or is it a system assigned, as in, is it one that doesn't go away when the user's deleted? Right. So yeah. Anyway, this is not an authorization talk. You say, yeah, system is fine. And then we have our experiment designer. This is where all the fun happens. So you have your steps and your branches. You can then add actions to those. So you can, I want to add a fault. And I want to set a fault. Now, I only have the one, where'd it go? The one resource that I targeted. Where'd it go? Hang on. Actually, I think I want to get off. Let me just do that again. 2 secs. There we go. Add an action. Let's add a delay, because I think that's what I did. Yeah, 10 minutes delay. Oh, right, yeah. So that everything delays, right? So, yeah. You can add faults to the resources, and you can add delays between. So you can make this happen in the middle of the night, if that's what you want. So I was looking for the delay in the fault. So, AKS, no one uses that. Where did it go? Key vault. So you can see there's a fair few faults you can add, right? And they keep adding more as they target more resources. So there could be CPU pressure on 95 for 10 minutes. That's the duration I was looking for. 10 minutes of 95% CPU. And then we can target a resource. And then, of course, it wasn't the one I had chosen. But if I had a target that was applicable, so a VM, for example, I could do that. And you can do this without people knowing it. That's the whole point. You can also do it as a planned thing. So there are various different ways you can do this, right? Let me just find that one that I had. This is live demos. Woo! Change. Ooh, cloud service shutdown. Don't think that was the one. No, still not. Anyway, you get the idea. And what this does is that you can very simply create all these scenarios that is either something you want to just expose your app to, you can recreate things, or you might have just a nefarious bone in you and say, 2 a.m. everything turns off, right? And see what happens. There's many ways that this can be super, super useful. And again, it is within Azure. So it's not like there's an outage. You can easily bring it back. And that's the whole point. You are in control of the chaos, so to speak. All right, surely questions on this before we end? No? Yes, Dylan, you want chaos.
Is this something that they've opened an API for?
Is there an API for it? That's a good, I don't know. I actually don't know. You really want to be undercover ninja, don't you? Yeah. No, I see your point. If there was an API, you can integrate with lots of things, for sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. That's a good question. Yes? Is there an AWS version? You're just trolling now. I don't know. I'm not sure. And if there is, it's probably called something like Princess Ninja or something. Like AWS naming is so rubbish. I'm not sure. Could be. All right, we have a minute. All right.
Can you connect it with some sort of monitoring and automatically terminate experiment if things go south?
Yeah, but that hopefully, and this is me being the teacher, right? You should already have that. Like, this is not meant to create like special logs or anything. This is just purely meant to interrupt things. So whatever logs you have on your resources should already pick this up, because they don't know. The resources don't know this is happening. So does that make sense? So it's a good way of testing your logging and your monitoring. Did we even know this was happening? Yeah. All right. Maya's going to kick me out. So I just want to, if you bear with me, I just want to show you some of these, because Microsoft actually helps you along the way with a lot of these things. There we go. Yes, we went through that. Thank you. Okay. So testing architecture. Now, I'll just quickly rush through these because we're out of time, but Microsoft gives you a whole bunch of architectures or this is the baseline of how they recommend you set these resources up, right? So here's your test environment, here's your whatever, your pipelines. And the links will, again, I'll be on Twitter as well, or when you get the slides. And they've got a few of these. They have one for web apps, they have one for dev test. And if you follow the baseline, these are just minor changes really to how you implement these things. And of course, there's one for IaaS as well. So stop with the excuses, seriously. There's a lot of ways that you can implement testing, even so it makes it a bit more fun, especially if you're in charge of Chaos Studio. I hope you got at least one thing out of it, and I hope you have a great rest of the day, and thank you so much for coming.